All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. You all know my name, Monique Pollock. I'm here to present my dissertation defense on my dissertation entitled What It Takes to Live This Lifestyle, an investigation into Black women's identity progression when practicing soft life. Of course, I appreciate you all being here and supporting me for the past 6 months and Dr. Robinson for the past 3 years. I really have enjoyed the process and it's been rewarding. So today's agenda, we're going to start with an overview of the topic, then the literature review. I'll talk about the theoretical frameworks that I chose, the research design. I'll discuss the participants and their demographics, the procedures for the research. We'll go over the research questions, the themes and quotes associated with those from our participants, and recommendations for future research as well as practice. So we'll start with an overview. What is this lifestyle? What is soft life? So the definition that was chosen and created for this research is choosing to live a life that mitigates struggle and stress, adopting femininity, using lifestyle hacks such as self-care. It's adopting thoughts and behaviors and feelings that are focused on the individual's personal care and enjoyment, more pleasure, and peace is very paramount. It's also the rejection of behaviors and thoughts that are focused on hustle culture, which is defined as a glorification of productivity, working hard, working long hours, all at the expense of one's individual mental health and physical health. And those things are minimized. So that is the definition that we're using for soft life. So what does it take to live this lifestyle? So we're going to talk about the strong Black woman identity, the basis for this paper and its progression into soft life. So what is the strong Black woman historically? It's an independent Black woman. It's one that takes care of everyone, one that is known to be strong, resilient, and persistent, as we will see in the paper. Where do we see this? We see it in the home, we see it in the community demonstrated, as well as in the media and television, that image reinforced. And why is it prevalent? Because it's becoming from both directions, and it's become the standard of what a Black woman typically should be and is known as. So what about soft life? So the soft life phenomenon began a couple of years ago, almost 3 at this point, in 2022. And it began online through Nigerian bloggers. The term soft comes from the Nigerian pidgin dialect, so kind of like a slang term. So soft was thought to be luxurious, lavish, easy, luxury, anything associated with just a nice lifestyle, just calling it soft. And as it moved online, the hashtag was created within that online community, and soft life, the hashtag was created and it started to grow from there. Now, how has it impacted Black women? So again, it started from just describing a lush and lavish and easy lifestyle that one desired, to actually from outside superficial things to now moving more towards an internal change of how your life could be solved by implementing some of those outside factors and it affecting you. So we'll discuss that as we move forward. The literature. So what does the literature have to do with all of this? In the Black community, we have lots of slangs and phrases, and one that I remember growing up, it starts in the home, which is exemplified through the ecological systems theory. It all starts at development of someone's identity, starts in their innermost setting in the home, which we'll discuss in the next few slides. And then we brought in the Black feminist thought to give it a Black perspective. We're also going to take a look in the literature, in the manuscript, at things that have triggered Black women into the strong Black woman schema, which situations happen at work, working while Black, being scholarly while Black, dealing with your aesthetic appearance and having various hairstyles while Black, your mental health in the community, physical health being affected by these stressors, and just being Black because of the intersection of the gender and race, female and Black. So the theoretical frameworks, again, that I chose, the EST, ecological systems theory, and we focused on the microsystem, the exosystem, and the macrosystem within this model. The microsystem being the innermost one, like your family, your friends, mother, father, school that's influencing you, to the exosystem that's dealing more with the media influence, and macrosystem, which is the cultural influence of the society. Again, we brought in Black feminist thought to give it a Black perspective. So within Collins' book, 3 particular areas aligned with this research, that's work, family, Black women's oppression, the mammy figure, matriarchs, controlling images, and the self-defining power of Black womanhood, which coincided with the 3 parts of the model from EST. We're working with what happens in the home, how the image is defined by others, and then the self-defining power as we're going to move into soft life as an alternate to being only a strong Black woman. So these are the models. On the right, you can see the traditional model that that has every system in it, from the microsystem out to the macro system. And here on the left, I was fortunate enough to find that a research was done and the model was adapted to Black youth, which had some overlap with what I was researching here as colorism and systematic racism is more modern. So you have Black Lives Matter movement, and you have other items on this model that are affecting the Black community in a way that has historically been spoken about. Yeah, such as historical and interracial trauma. So you all know from my proposal that I did a qualitative feminological research using the transcendental framework. And that's how this was carried out. You following Mustafa's guidance based on concepts from the transcendental feminology, which means that I examined the essence of the human experience, both in terms of what was experienced and how it was experienced by Black women. And we will break that down in our research questions. I also was able to go back into my own experience and write that out so that I could set aside personal bias. So now I'm going to go into the participants. We started this research with 15 volunteers. As you can see here. These are their pseudonyms that they all chose. 80% of the participants were between the ages of 36 and 45. 80% were full-time employees, with 60% having advanced careers. 100% of participants agree that they were perceived Black or African of descent by others. 53% were single, 27% married, and 20% were divorced. 67% had no children, 34% had 1 or more. 87% encouraged another Black woman to be a strong Black woman. 80% identified as a strong Black woman all the time. 86% participants had direct experience with soft life through viewing it on media or practice. 86% agreed that soft life had an impact on their lives by changing their daily practices. And 80% claimed that it had impacted the way they view themselves as SBWs. So as far as the procedures, how I went about doing this, of course, I got IRB approval, put out a recruitment advertisement, and communicate the expectations of the research. Consent forms were sent out and they were reviewed and signed by participants. Then I had a survey of the demographic information that you just heard about. We had a focus group interview that had an overview of the topic, and I gave them a presentation on soft life in the media, and we had several discussions about strong Black womanhood and soft life. We also had individual interviews and questions on how they adopted soft life and their experience with being a strong Black woman. They were all requested to write a letter to a young Black woman about their experiences and being strong and soft life attributes. And then I analyzed the data for consistent themes of what it was experienced and how it was experienced. So that group interview lasted an hour, and the individual interviews varied from about 45 minutes to an hour. Of course, I wrote notes about the characteristics and from the focus group interview. If any had any questions, I cleared it up with them in our conversations. The most used words and phrases were organized in a list. These were synthesized and reduced into a more refined textural themes and structural themes. So I had 29 that some of them are overlapping. So we ended up getting down to 9 major themes with sub-themes that answered research questions. So I use these themes to construct a description of the essence of the phenomenon. So let's go into the research questions. The first one being, how do Black women describe the strong Black woman? In what places, if any, have they learned about the strong Black woman? How have they integrated the strong Black woman schema into their identities? So this is textual and what the participants described as a SBW. And like I said earlier, overwhelmingly being independent, being strong, and being a caretaker. Here we have hopes from our participants. One in particular from Lovebug, she said, my dad always taught me, don't rely on anybody else, that you have to know things for yourself and do things for yourself. And that points back to the being independent. We'll move on here to our second research question, also textual. How do Black women define soft life? How have they constructed a soft life for themselves? And overwhelmingly, again, repeated words, repeated phrases, healing, being authentic to yourself, thriving, experiencing these relational and professional adversity. For example, when they decided to make these change, it being a little having some dissonance with other people because they decided to maybe put themselves first. For example, Zuri said, soft life to me means that you're basically liberated. You're doing what you want to do and how you want to do it, regardless of what people are going to say. You do not care. You are not subscribing to hustle culture and grind culture. You are actively and purposely engaging in rest. So in her quote, she was hitting on various points of that. Her joy, peace, and rest, as well as not worrying about what other people have to say about these choices that she's making. And our third research question, what significant soft life experiences, both positive effect and negative, influence Black women to construct or reconstruct ideas about their lived realities? How do Black women's experiences with soft life assist Black women in developing and changing their identities? So this is structural on how they experience soft life that transform them. So those are redefined relational scripts. So they had a relational disequilibrium, also cognitive, gaining confidence to say no in order to prioritize self. Freeing themselves from previous ideas, such as taking on everything and not showing weakness, which is a huge part of being a strong Black woman. So being more vulnerable. And so here you can see Breed says, the soft life isn't about weakness. It's about allowing ourselves the freedom to enjoy life's simple pleasures, to relish in self-care, and to find moments of tranquility amidst the chaos. So through all this research and communication with the participants and the feedback in the letters, there's some recommendations that Black women can gain from this. It is recommended that the young Black women that they wrote to, for those young Black women wanting to move through life this way, be aware of the implications of their intersection, race and gender, but not base their identity on outside factors such as stereotypes and generalizations to dictate their demeanor, such as being strong, independent, and being resilient. It is recommended to look inward to one's authentic self as a means to thrive. So as far as future research, through the research, I found that the following recommendations can aid Black women in their adoption or transition to soft life and can aid researchers on future topics to explore. Two I would like to highlight are number one, Black women's authenticity. This came up a lot, and this is really the basis for the research, is going back to who you really are or discovering who you really are and moving through life that way and not for a predefined schema that you're trying to live up to. And that can affect a lot of the other numbers that you see here, such as their health and asking for help and things like that. Boundary settings for Black women, number two, is also a top one because it allows the women to say no or to choose things that are best for them that will also affect a lot of the things that come after, such as luxury, engaging in luxury, or being more feminine, or maintaining your peace through saying no, as we heard over and over and over again in the research. Oops. Okay, so recommendations for future practice for our content creators, for our designers, for our social media influencers, writers, people who create content, what they can learn from this, and recommendations from them. They can be advised by the strategies imparted by the Black women in the study, understanding that SBW messaging taught within the Black community as well as in the media. There's an opportunity to introduce a different message for Black women on these platforms. And these following points that I will point out may help guide them to a life that's a soft life that's outside of aesthetic beauty, which is why I chose this PowerPoint presentation with the flowers and all this type of stuff. It's more than just an outward appearance, but more to their inner work that they're doing within inside of themselves. So those are, I'll print out a couple here, showing situational vulnerability versus strength by any means. By no means would I say that SBW is something that shouldn't be taught or something that Black women should not embody, but not showing that you can be vulnerable, that you can have moments where you're not as strong, or moments that you actually are weak, can be of detriment because it doesn't allow people to express themselves. So trying to show that there's a varied options in media. And number two, display Black women's sources of pain versus resilience focused think pieces. So a lot of times we hear comeback stories. A lot of times we hear how people have conquered, but we don't necessarily know what they have gone through, what their sources of pain are, especially as they're experiencing them. So putting more things out there may help Black women adopt a soft life and not only focus on being a strong Black woman. I would just like to close by saying what it takes to live this lifestyle. The title of this manuscript has two meanings actually, and I didn't realize it until after I was finished. One meaning is that you have to possibly go through a lot of things in order to get to live this lifestyle. So the struggle, the being strong, the being independent, now you finally deserve the soft life. But what it takes to live this lifestyle is also a prescriptive list of what you can do to successfully be a soft life girly. And now I'll open the floor for questions. Thank you very much.
So, Monique, we would like to congratulate you. You are now Dr. Pollock.
Yay!